Adrian Niculescu. Welcome to the second day of the live battle between startups, developers, and founders during the first edition of DAO One International Hackathon. I have a very special guest today, Paolo Petrolini. Welcome, Paolo, to DAO One Community Hackathon. How are you doing? And please introduce yourself.
Hey, Adrian, I'm doing very well. Thanks a lot for having me here. Really appreciate it. And I'm very excited to be part of this hackathon and trying to help the startups and the projects here. So to give you a bit of context and background about myself, so I'm originally from Italy, but I spent the last 20 years pretty much living in 10 different countries, which gives me like a lot of pleasure in living in different places and getting to know lots of different cultures. Well, professionally, I spent almost 13 years in Google, where I was the head of trust and safety in Central Europe, based in Switzerland. And since 2018, when I left Google, I started a few different ventures, of which one is a fintech company called Electrifying, based in CE. Another one is an advisory company called Materia, based in Switzerland. As a tech person, as a product manager in my background, I also work with lots of startups and let's say like early stage projects in general, as an advisor, as a coach, as a mentor, mostly focusing on product management, which is the topic I would love to talk about today with you, Adrian.
Basically, the topic for today is how to build a successful product. And most of the people in the audience are early stage founders or developers working on an idea. And we all know that everybody has a $1 million or a $1 billion idea. The thing is, how do you transform that idea into a successful product? So how do you start, actually?
Yeah, that's exactly like what you said. Like everybody has like these $1 billion ideas, right? That unfortunately they don't turn into a product, or they turn into a product that doesn't really work. So in my experience, having worked like in Google, but also with my own fintech and advising lots of startups, I would actually say that the reason why the $1 billion idea doesn't turn into a successful product can be summarized in a couple of points. The first point is that very often, and particularly when the idea is coming from extremely tech teams, and blockchain projects very often come from very strong tech teams, there is that kind of syndrome where you've been developing, building the product and spending a lot of time without ever talking to your customers, to your users, to your community. So you end up launching something which technically is amazing, but from a customer user point of view, it's completely useless. And so that's one of the issues that I've seen like in that specific case. The other one, when actually the opposite is true, that is a very business-driven team, and very often this happens, for example, with fintech companies, the idea is too big to be realized. And it starts with a huge, gigantic idea that the founders think that they can realize, but the reality is that technology and their know-how doesn't really support it, right, to be able to build it. So it's the other side of the equation in a way. And the third thing, I would say, it's also timing. Like very often, these huge ideas that you might have are not well enough timed to be well perceived in the market. So why I'm saying this is that, where do you start from? You actually start from avoiding these 3 points, right? So first of all, really understanding if your idea it's feasible at the moment with the technology that exists, if the timing is right, and also that from the beginning talking to your potential users and customers.
This is a thing I hear over and over before starting working on something. Try to see if there is a market for that product. We all know that, but still, so many founders avoid this essential step. Why is that?
So that's, I would say in most of the cases, the reason why founders do not perform their reality check is that when you drill down too much into an idea and you work with a very close group, you become biased. You become biased and you start building that bias that the market is wrong, that you're right and the market is wrong, which is one of the biggest fallacy that you can find in product management and generally in business management, because the market is always right. You might be wrong, but the market is always right, because you can build an amazing product, but if nobody's buying it, if nobody's investing into it, it's completely useless. So I think that there is that kind of like reality check needed when we're building something, and be it a product or a service, is that really, am I really building customer value? Am I really gonna generate financial value for my own company by building this customer value? And one technique that is very useful to do this, it's called product discovery, which I've learned many years ago, and it's a very interesting approach in terms of product management, which changes completely the paradigm of, rather than building a product, you're discovering a product that is addressing a customer problem. So you don't start with the solution, you start with the customer problem, and then you define a solution. And this creates that kind of reality check that you need from the beginning to make sure that what you're building is really needed and will be well perceived by the market.
By the way, is this the Google way of doing things?
So Google has like a blend approach towards product management. Product discovery is definitely used, not in the strict definition of product discovery, but as a concept, it is used for sure. Also, Google as a company obviously has like a very different approach for very different products, because also product management, you need to look at product management in terms of the end goal of the product. So for example, hardware product management is very different from software product management or from legal product management. So I would say that Google uses like very different approaches and a blend of different techniques. Product discovery is a bit more recent. It's something that, one of the most prominent experts on this topic is Marty Kagan and Teresa Torres. They're two very famous product managers. And it's a bit more recent. But definitely like a very interesting approach. And that's the one I use.
Very nice. So based on your experience. And the next question is, which is the biggest blockage when you try to transform the $1 million or the $1 billion idea into a successful product? Which is like the biggest blocker?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would break it down into capabilities, capacity, and feasibility. So what that means is, as I mentioned at the beginning, to turn an idea into a successful product, be it a $1 billion product or a $1 million product, or like a $100,000 product, right? But still turning into something like functional and used by users. You really need to think about these three aspects, these macro areas. So starting with capabilities, when you look at your team, when you look at your core competences, can you build that product? Can you build that idea into that product? So that's the first question you should ask yourself. After obviously always first market validation. The second thing is capacity. Do we have enough people to build it? Do we have enough resourcing to build it? Or do we need to go outside and enhance means like additional funding? And the third thing is the feasibility, because you might have the capabilities and the capacity, but something might not be feasible, as said, in the timing or in the context that you're living in. You might be, astrophysicist or like aerospatial engineer, and you have like a clear understanding of like how to go to Mars and land like a space shuttle to Mars, but perhaps feasibility-wise, from a technology point of view, is not possible at the moment. So this is an extreme case, obviously, right? But these, to me, these are the three key pillars, right? When looking at transforming an idea into a successful product.
And how do you overcome these blockages in real life? Or maybe if you had some problems, how did you overcome them?
I share with you my experience. The way I build products, and I've been building products, is using the very well-known approach of like launch and iterate. So what that means is you start with a very big idea, which you plan on achieving, you plan on building over the next 5 to 10 years. So it's a very long horizon. It's not the next 6 months. I know that very often in the crypto space, the horizon is like 12 months. But I think even in the crypto space, there must be like a bit of a longer horizon, as we see now, right? The projects that have been running for a while. And as you build that longer horizon, you also understand the capacity, capability, and feasibility of each step. So you break it down. So I want to go to Mars, let's say, with a space shuttle and have the first like passenger carrier going to Mars. I will start first with like, okay, I need to build a passenger carrier that can actually go to Mars. In order to build a passenger carrier, I need to have an engine, I need to have the space, and so on. You see what I mean? And so you have these micro goals, steps, milestones, which I personally collect using OKRs, Objective and Key Results. It's a framework used by Google and many other companies. And that helps validating those 3 key pillars: capacity, capability, and feasibility. That's the best way to me to do that kind of risk management in a way.
Can like everybody be transformed into a founder of a company building a successful product?
So there's a very nice book. I think it's from the 1990s, which is called The E-Myth Revisited. So this book has nothing to do with tech. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about actually brick and mortar businesses. So you're a baker and you want to open a bakery, right? That kind of stuff. So I think anyone can be a successful entrepreneur. Anyone can build their own company, as long as they understand that building a company is not about being a subject matter expert. You don't need to be a subject matter expert in order to open a company, to run a successful business. What I mean with that is that obviously you need to understand the scope, you need to understand the technology if you're using a technology, but it's not all about being an expert. Being the CEO, being the founder, being the person in charge of running a business is much more than that. The subject matter expertise is just a part of it. And that's, I think, what a lot of entrepreneurs fail in understanding, that they do believe that they're an expert in the field, which is absolutely great, but then they fail in understanding how to run a business. So if you ask me, can anyone be a founder of a successful business running a successful product? For sure, as long as they really understand what being the CEO, the founder, the person, the managing director of that company is.
And do you recommend the founders to keep their hands dirty as the company grows, or just to focus on meetings, e-meetings, and delegation?
So it depends on the stage of the company, right? There is, again, I read a lot, so I keep mentioning books. There's a very good book called Blitzscaling by Reid Hoffman, one of the founders of LinkedIn, PayPal, very successful entrepreneur, advisor, investor at this point. So every company has different stages. I mean, this book, Reid Hoffman, is really differentiating, picturing them with different, very, very colorful attributes and names. So it's talking, for example, about the family stage, the tribe stage, the village stage, the city stage, the nation stage, and then above and beyond, right? So when we look at the progression of a company, at the beginning, let's call it the family stage, when it's usually the 2-3 co-founders or one co-founder with one employee. At that stage, you need to get your hands dirty. But as soon as like you get into the tribe, which is generally between, let's say, above 10 people, you need to start delegating and acting more as a CEO, as a business manager, as a managing director. You can't be doing the day-to-day operations as you manage a business, because there are a lot of external dependencies and internal dependencies that you have to manage as a business owner. So I said, in the first phase, obviously, you get your hands dirty in most of the cases. But let's say as soon as like you start hiring, you should start delegating some of those tasks to the people that you're hiring. And I know that for startup founders, this is a very tricky and difficult thing to do. Because of trust, because of inexperience, but that's a necessary step in order to bring the business to the next level. And this is something I often coach and mentor startup founders on how to do, because they feel this kind of urge, but on the other side, they're a bit skeptical and, let's say, worried about delegating.
I wanted to ask about how do you see equity in the early stage of a startup? It's said that equity is like the currency for early stage startups, and so many founders, let's say, are not happy to give equity from the start to the team members, but they can hire very good specialists, not necessarily full-time, on project or as advisors, who instead of money will accept to be paid via equity, which is usually vested over a period of time. How do you see this paradigm?
So when I look at equity, I see, exactly as you described, very often it's used as a currency for hiring, for early hiring, like when lacking liquidity. I would actually think about equity in a different way. Rather than saying equity is a currency, equity is the way of getting people to have a vested interest in the company. So what I mean is, if you hire even an operational person or an advisor, and you don't have enough cash, or even if you have enough cash, giving them equity will help a lot get them to a place where they feel that they own the company, because they own a part of the equity, right? Part of the equity of the company. And that can help a lot. In which sense can help a lot? In the sense of having people more committed to the project, right? So if I get paid, let's say, by a company, I don't have any equity. That company is paying me like X thousands of dollars per month. Another one comes in and offers me X percentage of increase compared to my current salary. If I don't have a vested interest, and equity could be a way of vested interest, like of having vested interest, I would likely jump to the next job, right? In most of the cases. Of course, there are things beyond that, there are like the interest in the project and so on. But the equity is a great tool, a retention tool. So that's the way I see it, much more than a currency. And I do encourage startup founders, even if they have the cash to pay their employees, to build like an employee stock option program to show that you're part of the company. You're not just an employee. You're actually a shareholder, so to say, right? So to me, it's very important. Now, when I look at giving away too much equity at the beginning, I agree that this is not something that should be done. It should be avoided at all cost, simply because the more equity you give away, specifically with investors, the less control you have of your company in decision making. But again, that depends also on the type of investors that you have. Some investors are happy to, in a way, be quiet and and let you operate, which are in my mind are the best investors and support you if needed. Some other investors, even if you have 2%, they want to know like exactly what you're doing every week. So again, it's not about the equity, it's about the investor in that case, to be careful on the investor that you're picking.
Which advice you would give to the startup who will win this hackathon? They will get a guaranteed place in the incubation program created by DAO1. So, which should be the next steps to focus on for the winner of this hackathon, besides, of course, joining the incubator?
The first step that I would do is with the group that will win this hackathon. For them would be, if I were in their shoes, for me would be to sit down as a group and set a strategy, a product strategy. Because right now you have the inception phase in this hackathon, but then is, okay, how are we gonna build this product and branch out from this product and build something which is an ecosystem, so to say, is an expansion of this specific product. And with that, I would strongly advise them to use a technique which is called design sprints. It's a 5 days design, product management design technique. There is a book about it, design sprints. This is something actually I've learned in Google because I started in Google. And I would really encourage people, the winners, but also not just the winners, also there are people that want to bring the project to the next stage, to sit down and buy the book. It's like, I think it's $10, go through the book together and do a design sprint of 5 days. So to have like a clear definition, a clear roadmap of how to build their product going forward. From a product point of view, obviously, like in terms of technical needs, but also in terms of resourcing, in terms of funding, in terms of like commercial aspects and so on. So defining all of that. That would be the natural next step in my mind.
Great. You are both a judge in the current hackathon and also a speaker, expert, mentor in the incubation program. I wanted to ask you, when you analyze a project as a judge in the hackathon, which is the first thing you are looking at?
It's 3 things, actually. 3 questions. Question number 1, is this project delivering customer value, real customer value? Number 2, is this product delivering financial value to the company that is building it? So is it profitable in a way? Now, later, but would that generate revenue through it and be sustainable? And number 3, the team. Understanding who is behind this product, these projects, because that's one of, in particular, the early stages, as we discussed at the family stage, this is like one of the most important things. And this is not about just the capabilities, but it's also about the synergies between the folks in the team, right? So these are the 3 things I usually look at when doing, analysis of projects. Also, when I was working for a short while, I was working with some venture capitalist firms, like in the US and in Europe, as an advisor, right, to some of their startups. And these were the 3 things I was always looking into and asking, always.
Thank you very much. And before finishing the interview, how can people reach you?
So they can reach me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn quite a bit, or my email, which is paolo@petrolini.me. So my name @ my surname.me. And I would be happy to chat with anyone that is interested. So if you have a question, if you want to know more about what we've been talking about, just drop me a line.
Thank you very much for the participation today in the hackathon. Can't wait to meet you again in the incubation project. and all success with all your projects, and from good to better to best in everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it, guys.